Meanwhile, a focused hand cautiously searches through the debris, reaching out to uncover what lies hidden beneath the rubble. Growing up in the lower city meant enduring the cruel labels of others, as the determined young man sifted through the rubble, fueled by resilience amid the devastation. A determined young man stood in the golden light of sunset as someone confronted him about his condition, exclaiming with concern at how he looked, while he responded with a steely resolve. As the boy excitedly presented a valuable piece of metal he had found amidst the rubble, the young man, visibly relieved, acknowledged discovery and remarked that it should trade for a substantial amount of food. Walking wearily through the debris-strewn wasteland, the wary boy urged his companion that it was time to return, remarking with resignation that the people of the lower city could only survive on the cast-offs discarded by those above. Reflecting on the harsh reality of their world, the main character observed with resignation that while others might see only trash, for people here, such things were treasures, as survival demanded valuing whatever they could find. Standing resolutely between the blazing sunset and the shadowy digital night, the main character radiated confidence as his dual nature was dramatically unveiled. As they walked side by side through the litter-strewn street in their worn sandals, the younger boy looked up at his older brother and asked in an inquisitive tone for him to explain something he was eager to understand. As they moved cautiously through the devastated alley, the determined young man voiced his anxious uncertainty to his companion, questioning whether they truly had any hope of escaping the lower city. As they walked through the rundown alley, the determined young man reassured his hopeful companion by promising that if he won the tournament that day, they would earn the right to live in the upper city, filling her with hope for a better future. Spotting and in the dusty alley, the relieved man eagerly waved and called out, expressing how glad he was to see them finally return. The girl, visibly annoyed, called out to Tai and remarked with frustration that he had taken so long she almost thought he had forgotten her. In a tense alleyway confrontation, the cocky young man challenged the other two by accusing them of breaking their agreement. His defiance met with wary silence from the boy and uneasy glances from the girl standing nearby. Standing firm in the sunlit alley, the boy resolutely declared to the hooded figure that he would seize every opportunity to change his reality, even if it meant risking everything on his path toward the upper city. From a window of the dusty, damaged building, the girl cheered with encouragement, voicing her enthusiastic approval of words. A masked man, his voice brimming with determination, shouted from the window of a dingy building that those from the upper city must never be allowed to look down on them, rallying the oppressed to defiance. As three young challengers strode determinedly down the city street, the surrounding crowds cheered them on enthusiastically, urging them to prove the strength of the lower city, win the competition, and assuring them of their unwavering support. With a knowing smirk curling at his lips, the self-assured protagonist radiated unshakable confidence in the silent moment. With unwavering confidence, the young man raised his fist and assured everyone that they could rely on him to secure victory. A shadowy figure, quick and determined, dashes resolutely through the sunlit, deserted street as startled bystanders turn to watch, their tension rising with each hurried step. In a sunlit, rundown room, the girl asked her brother if he was nervous, to which he confidently assured her that after countless battles in the game, he felt prepared for the upcoming challenge. While confidently displaying the glowing blue crystal shards, the main character boasted about his skills both in the game and real life, prompting the other boy to react with playful skepticism and amused dismissal. With focused resolve, the young man adjusted his earpiece and told those around him that it was time to prepare, signaling the start of something important. As the digital interface glowed, confirming his identity, he stood resolute, initiating his entry into the virtual battle realm. As the lone figure was drawn toward the radiant digital portal, the system announced that the player was Lei, signaling the beginning of his extraordinary journey into the unknown realm. A digital interface shimmered against the futuristic blue-lit backdrop, signaling the player's entry into the battle realm and setting an anticipatory mood. With infectious enthusiasm, the energetic announcer introduced Lee to the crowd as the fastest-rising player since Battle Realm launched, declaring this moment as the arrival of the game's final pride. With anticipation mounting, the narrator highlighted the protagonist's flawless record of 9 consecutive victories and wondered if today he would achieve an unprecedented 10th win against his formidable challenger, the renowned 5th-ranked White Emperor. A white-haired man stood with a confident, contemptuous smirk and greeted the protagonist with a sneer, derisively remarking on his lower city origins to assert his own sense of superiority. With unwavering determination, the masked challenger declared his intent to win and claimed that doing so would secure him a place among the upper city residents. As the match is announced with electrifying energy, the determined girl pumps her fist in the air amidst the dramatic rain and the gathering of bizarre mascot-like creatures, her excitement setting the tone for the intense event ahead. In a surge of awe, the crowd exclaimed that the sword in White Emperor's hands was the legendary Imperial Dragon, famed across the server for its unmatched power to pierce all defenses and deal true damage at a steep gold cost, as the hero triumphantly brandished it, radiating pride. As the powerful adversary unleashed a devastating attack with his glowing weapon, he taunted the boy by revealing that forging it had cost over 10 million units of real-world energy and warned him to surrender, emphasizing that each strike consumed an extravagant fortune. With fierce determination burning in his eyes, the battle-scarred young man proclaimed that as long as he could fight, he would never surrender. As an arena floorboard is dramatically weaponized with glowing energy, the narrator reveals that this is Lee's self-created skill, Universal Armament, which unleashes massive damage using an ordinary floorboard as a weapon, though it shatters after use. He can imbue weapon attributes into any object he touches. Everything becomes his weapon, making his explosive attack a display of the fierce pride of. He can imbue weapon attributes. With a contemptuous glare, the man dismissed his opponent's move as nothing more than a petty trick, his confidence radiating amidst the swirling energy. With fierce determination, the man unleashes a torrent of glowing green energy beams, striking his opponents and asserting his dominance on the battlefield. As activated his universal armament skill, summoning an arena brick to deliver a stunning blow, the man was left shocked and demanded to know where his opponent had suddenly disappeared. As the dominant antagonist unleashed a decisive, paralyzing attack with his enchanted weapon and dismissed his opponent as unworthy, the protagonist, shocked and overwhelmed, realized in disbelief that he could no longer move, suspecting his foe's skill or weapon was the cause. In a sudden, panicked realization, the protagonist understood that the threat was not confined to virtual space, but was targeting him in the real world, sending him into alarmed disbelief. Standing tall atop the rocky terrain, the dominant adversary arrogantly declared to his fallen opponent that the lower city scum had been defeated, proclaiming White Emperor's ultimate victory as his rival collapsed in crushing defeat below. Bathed in ominous digital light, the girl floats motionless, her unresponsive form drifting as if lost between reality and the virtual world. Suddenly, the young man froze in place, beads of sweat trickling down his anxious face as ominous red symbols and digital effects pulsed around him, signaling the activation of a mysterious power. Amid the pounding rain, the main character fixed his gaze forward, his intense determination shining through as he prepared for the challenge ahead. As the masked figures in white cloaks menacingly advanced, the terrified boy desperately pleaded with them not to harm him, his fear echoing in the oppressive silence. Desperate and battered, the girl pleaded with unwavering resolve that they must not stop her brother's match, her fierce protectiveness shining through despite her struggle. As the man furiously pinned the girl to the ground, he shouted at her to be silent while she screamed in agony beneath his grip. As the boy was forcefully restrained by the guards, he shouted desperately for, his panic rising as the imposing figure stepped forward with a menacing presence. Standing in the doorway with an air of arrogant authority, the man warned the girl from the lower city that, although he acknowledged her courage, she had made a grave mistake by daring to raise her hand against them, while his silent companion stood supportively at his side. With fury blazing in his eyes, muttered an insult through clenched teeth, his rage barely contained. In a sudden, intense burst of action, the determined main character launches a fierce kick that sends his shocked opponent flying across the scene. A furious young man charged forward, demanding to know who the intruders were as his eyes blazed with determination. In the dim, tense room, the authoritative man, exuding confidence, observed that his opponent was still defiant and then commanded his subordinates to take him down. Amidst the chaos, the boy were abruptly ensnared by a web of glowing lines, their startled and alert expressions revealing the peril of the ambush as action surged around them. Despite his struggles, the determined young man mentally resolved to persevere, insisting to himself that he had not given up yet. Overwhelmed by regret, the MC desperately wished that he could be granted another chance. As three figures plummeted helplessly through the ominous digital void, distant voices cried out in alarm, echoing their shared panic and disbelief. In a surge of luminous blue energy, the mysterious surrealing player system activates around the young man, leaving him awestruck as digital graphics swirl through the air. As the boy plummets helplessly through the swirling digital interface, a series of loading modules flickers around him, signaling that the virtual world is assembling itself in anticipation of his arrival. A game-like system screen appears, presenting the novice task to kill 100 plague rats and warning that refusal will result in the candidate's erasure, as the determined young man steels himself to accept this deadly trial. With unwavering resolve, the young man affirmed his readiness to accept the challenge before him, his intense gaze reflecting his determination. Suddenly, as spectral, glowing green hands swarmed and grabbed at him, clutched his neck in distress, overwhelmed by the ominous assault. Suddenly, several monstrous glowing creatures with gaping mouths and clawed arms surge forward amid swirling energy, their menacing presence overwhelming the scene. Despite his wounds, the young man steeled himself and resolved that as long as he could still fight, he had not yet been defeated. As the mission commenced, the young man, filled with defiance, challenged the monstrous horde and declared that he was ready for whatever awaited him. Amidst the tense, energy-charged battle, the cautious observer took note of the combatants' extraordinary techniques, realizing the battle realm experiment had succeeded and deciding he must report this breakthrough immediately. In a dim, rough-hewn setting, the stern young man expressed with contempt that it was unfortunate such success had occurred in someone he considered a lower city rat. Turning with determination despite his wounds, intervened in the tense moment and insisted that the others stop beating the victim. With blood streaked across his tense face, cornered and desperate, threatened that he would toss the girl down if pushed any further. As the remorseless man hurled the terrified girl off the ledge, she screamed at him in desperation, accusing him of being a vile coward. In a surge of tension, the rebellious boy defiantly demanded to be released, but the agitated older man forcefully restrained him, warning to stay quiet if he valued his life. The boy, his irritation barely contained, confronted the man in white by accusing him and the other guards of being from the upper city and claiming that the White Emperor, unable to defeat him directly, had sent them to sabotage his match. After losing the fight, the young man with the blue eye patch stood his ground and insisted with defiant resolve that his opponent should back off and give him space. With a cold, disdainful glare, the girl dismissed the MC's ambitions by mocking his lower city origins and questioning why she should ever bother to listen to him. In a menacing tone, the man demanded that if they wanted him to release her, they would have to kneel before him. Suddenly, a massive structure hurtles down and slams into the ground, sending debris and surges of energy exploding outward in a scene of intense impact. On his knees and overcome with desperation, the young man pleaded with the menacing figure to release his terrified sister, promising to abandon his own dreams if it meant saving her. Lying injured on the ground, the girl desperately pleaded with her brother not to bow to their oppressors. At sunset, the man grinned smugly, and towering over the other, he mockingly declared with gleeful dominance that this was exactly how someone from the lower city ought to behave, clearly relishing in the act of humiliation. With a surge of determination, the protagonist steeled himself, silently acknowledging his lingering doubts yet choosing to press forward. With a contemptuous sneer, the man hurled the terrified girl out of the high window, justifying his brutality by declaring that someone from the lower city had no right to accuse him. With a worried edge to his voice, the young man anxiously called out for, his tense expression betraying his growing concern. In a frenzied burst of rage, the young man hurled himself forward and shouted that he would kill his opponent, his cry echoing with violent desperation as he launched a reckless attack. A single, dismissive voice echoed through the void, mocking the opponent's bravado with scornful detachment. A fierce man, wielding a massive dark weapon, unleashes a devastating attack toward the cornered young man, whose face is frozen in terror as he braces for the overwhelming blow. The young man's eyes widened in shock as he realized the threat behind his opponent's technique. With unwavering determination, the MC charged forward, sword in hand, defiantly declaring that he had not been defeated yet. With unwavering resolve, the protagonist firmly seizes the sword, the tension in his grip echoing the intensity of the moment. Amid a violent clash, as the determined MC drove his weapon into the overpowered man's side, the latter dismissed the attack with irritation, remarking that he found his opponent to be nothing more than a nuisance. A sinister man with a crazed smile, basking in a menacing red glow, loomed over his victim as he reveled in his dominance, tauntingly revealing that he was the one responsible for the impending death and insisting the victim remember this in the next life. Despite the sword driven through his chest and blood seeping from the wound, the hooded figure remained steadfast, his determined gaze betraying no hint of surrender. Blood pooling beneath him, the defeated protagonist is dragged mercilessly across the floor by several resolute, robed figures, his strength slipping away with each passing moment. As the cloaked figures dragged the wounded man toward the bloodied body, a horrified boy cried out in anguish, his voice echoing through the tense, fear-stricken crowd. With cruel satisfaction, the dominant man forcefully slammed his victim's head to the ground, taunting him by saying that nothing pleased him more than watching those from the lower city die in despair and rot as worthless garbage. In a desperate moment, the man commanded the distressed, tearful protagonist to kneel, threatening him with death if he refused. With determined confidence, the main character steps purposefully into the scene, his arrival heightening the tense atmosphere. Standing pensively before the crumbling building at sunset, the young man suddenly recalled something important and muttered to himself that he had just remembered. With a controlled air of authority, the man dispensed glowing blue currency to the bowing, fearful group, coldly informing them that their payment had arrived. In the heavy silence, the hooded male character lingered in the shadows, his stoic expression betraying nothing as he contemplated his next move. Realizing with a mix of determination and bitterness that opposition to his success extended far beyond just the upper city, the main character processed this deeper betrayal with a somber, shadowed resolve. From above, the disillusioned young man regarded the struggling figures below with contempt, inwardly condemning both the upper and lower city residents as no different from each other, and declaring that those in the lower city deserved to remain in their plight. Standing confidently at the edge of the pit, the girl declared with calm authority that the mission was complete as her defeated opponent plunged helplessly into the darkness below. As the wounded young man plummeted helplessly through empty space, he wondered in frustration whether everything had truly ended like this.